Yeah, okay. Hi, everybody. I love to do this class. And today we're going to focus on one is just some of Ding Liren's recent masterpieces. And we're going to be focusing on bishop versus knight. And so I thought I'd just start off with an interesting position. Uh, this was actually, on the chess school, we have Eugene Perelstein, often GM Eugene Perelstein, and his coach Roman Gingiashvili came up with this system. At least that's how I conceive of this, that he came up with it. I'll show you briefly how it comes about. And then I'd love to have just any thoughts about what you see happening in this strange position. And when I say that, I mean even just mundane things that you notice. And then also what you feel white should do. If you want me to call on you, I think the system I'd like to use is just put an exclam in the chat, and I will call on you if you'd like to talk about this position. Very fascinating position. Goes back to the time before computers. The time before computers. And if you want to talk about it, I guess I'm just interested in a little bit in your gut reaction to this position and what we should do. And I'll just admit, I will just admit that when I first saw this position, well, it seemed very sus to me. Very sus. Again, if you'd like me to call you, please put an exclamation just in the chat. Getting few exclamations, but that's a little slow. It's definitely a position to kind of meditate on and think about what you should do. Austin, are you ready to get called? You got to put an exclamation. Maybe I'm the only coach that does this exclamation thing. Maybe I'm the only one that does it. It's too hard. A lot of people giving me ideas in the chat. I'll put you. So I'll just talk a little bit then from my perspective on this position. The first thing, there's I guess two things that jump out. And there's a lot of things that jump out of this position. One, it seems as if black has neglected his development. Two, he gave up his bishop. And the bishop in which he invested seemingly some time with d6 and 3, his king seems a little sus now after f3. But the thing about this kind of position too is if you understand it, you can become really dangerous in a position like this is black. And to understand the dynamics, I think one of the key things that you want to talk about is this: the fact that this pawn is in the way of White's unopposed bishop. And me and Kostya reviewed a book, or talked about a book, in which the Karpov's idea of billiard balls was brought up as a metaphor. And here's what we mean. When you're thinking about a bishop, it's kind of got to, a lot of times, hit the side of the board like a billiard ball in order to move around the board. But the pawn on c3 cuts the bishop's access here and cuts it here. So there's no bouncing off the sides of the wall for the bishop to play in a lot of important ways. And definitely, I think a feature of the position is that this bishop is the unopposed bishop, and a real danger then for.
Kind of sort of obvious thing to say about the black position is that he wants to keep it closed and blockaded. And so a key thing I think to realize whenever you're dealing with bishop versus knight is if you have the bishop, you should feel licensed to rip the position open, even if it is at a cost of a pawn. So the c3 pawn is definitely a pawn which, if we could just magically take it off the board, we would, right? We want open lines. And I guess one of the things that I wish someone had told me when I was a kid, and every time I come and do this class, I'm trying to, say something that I wish someone had told me when I was a kid, is simply that when you have the bishops, that you should feel a license to play fast and loose with the position and to prevent it from becoming blockaded. So while knight f3 doesn't, it's not the end of the world, it shows that white doesn't actually understand what would be a good plan. And I think there's two reasonable moves. There's probably more than one, but two, to my mind, seem good. One was mentioned in the chat, and that's h4, h5. Definitely a powerful idea, maybe with an exchange sack on h5. And when we do something like that with some kind of intention of this exchange sack, really we have in mind the idea of to open the position. Another plan that appeals to me is e4. Just play e4, boss, And we got to say that if he takes the pawn on f3, he's insane. So in fact, though, there's been many games in this variation, and the standard plan is something like e5. Do not take on e4 because of queen h4. So something like queen c2, d6, takes. And, I think this is a good position for a gut check as well. Like, how do you feel about the position? Black has many moves. Of course, knight f6 comes to mind. h6, weird, but taking control of the dark squares comes to mind. Knight h6 even. You can't take it because of the queen h4 check, and maybe the knight will come and fight for the dark squares. And that's one of the things, the square complex where black is most deficient. So one of the weird things that your generation has to deal with, mine too, I guess, because I'm part of the world right now, is whenever you turn the computer on and bishops are on the board, it will generally just always favor the bishops. If you ask me about this position and say, Jesse, like, who's better and why? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I feel like black has his trumps here too. And it's a big deal that the pawn is c3 because it means that it's so hard for white to get breaks to open the position. And that's what really white would like here, is to have some breaks. Okay. So again, I'm just going to show you two positions as warm-ups, and then we're going to go to the main event. All right, let's go to position number 2. Let's go here. This is a position played between Fabi as black and Wojtasek as white. I believe it was last year. And this one stunned the chess world. We're talking people who are much, much stronger than me. Bishop e3, rook e8, queen d2, knight d7. Now, there's a lot of bishop g4 takes f3 stuff, which goes in this kind of flavor, let's call it that, okay? And, well, let's just start with saying the obvious. The bishop on f3 is, at the moment at least, not a great piece. Rook a d1, and here was Fabi's heresy. Boom. Very surprising. Queen c3, and then Fabi plays queen f6. So I want us to just stare at this position, and if you'd like to get called on, just have a sense of A, what should white do, and B, what you feel the evaluation of the position is, then that would be interesting for me. And if you want to do things in chat, maybe I'll parrot some of the stuff in chat. But this is a position I think is helpful maybe for thinking about the bishop versus knight and kind of the things that maybe white and black should be thinking of. Yeah. Okay. Anybody would like to come onto the chat to have me call on them? We got a very shy group today. We got one comment that black is slightly better. Also, I would not like to be called on. Well, I'm not calling. I'm just reading your chat. I'm just reading what you said, buddy. Okay. As class used to be a little more lively, everybody's a little bit scared now. Yeah. And also, it's really interesting. I think the first example might help us too in thinking about, like, well, how should white even then play this position? Let's start with the obvious and say that the black does have play against the e pawn. Yeah. All right, let me call on it. I don't know if Avish actually wants me to call on him. He put an exclam next to his move, but I personally like it when people come on and talk. So because I don't want it to all be about me. Havish, what do you got for us here, buddy?
Yeah, so first of all, Black has a lot of play against the e-pawn. He's about to blockade it with knight e5. And also, like you mentioned, when you have the two bishops, you get a license to open the position. So I think e5 is good because it opens the f3 bishop.
Okay, good. E5, I think, is definitely something that should be on the radar. Yeah. And one of the cool things about this, and I think you're absolutely right, Havish, that whether we do E5 now or very soon, it needs to be absolutely on our radar. Now, let me share with you how the game went, because Wojtaszek, a really great player, one of Anand's seconds for years, and 2,700 in his own right, collapses in the next couple moves, and he doesn't get a losing position, just gets a bad position. So I'm just going to show you what happened first, and then we'll go back. Let's just say the obvious. If you take on c5, you double black's pawns, but you completely lose the dark squares, and the bishop on f3 will remain bad, and the knight will come to d4. So queen b1, and there it is. Black has his double attack, and black says, thank you very much for the pawn. It is still a mess in this position. It's still a mess. And probably what was going on in Wojtaszek's mind is, hey, buddy, I don't mind giving you the pawn as long as I open the position. The problem is Havish is, I think, right. If we're going to give up a pawn, it should be the e-pawn. Anyways, Fabi outplayed the dude from this position. And, it's just stunning, too, to play h5. He's coming after him. I mean, it's a game for the ages. This, by the way, really interesting. What do we want when we have the knight? We want to attain a blockading structure. And that blockading structure can itself turn into an attack. Yeah. So something like queen d2, and maybe there's a lot to think about here with queen d2, and yeah, there's so much going on. And if queen e6, maybe even then e5. That's right. And then we're going to nail this bishop in. Very, very spicy position. But the idea would be, and basically to follow Havish's lead, that great if we could get that bishop ripping open, and if we could do so at the cost of the pawn, it would be worth it. So again, the thing I don't want to go too deep in these two examples. I just want to do as a warm-up for the main event, that when you have the bishops, right, the license to open the position needs to be felt acutely. And as black, if you're playing with the knights, you are a dangerous man playing with the knights, and you want to keep the position closed and blockaded. I'm going to slow down the position. All right, let's go to the masterpiece. Here's our position. Stare at it for a second. Before I even give a chance to call on people, I'm going to show just how the game evolved, and then we'll think about what white should do in this position. So this is not from the first position. This is from a game that Ding, we're now going to be talking about Ding's masterpieces. Ding played against MVL. So I'm going to show just the beginning, and then H4. I'm not going to talk about H4. And then here we get it. Very surprising to me. Bishop C3, F6, G5. Okay. Any thoughts? And by the way, if you want to just come on the air and just tell me your basic impressions of the position. And what I mean by that is I really feel like when you're playing a position like this, you should be, when you're thinking about just the positional stuff that's going on, you should do it, first of all, before you even think about what you should do as a move. You should say to yourself, just what is happening? What are the dynamics of the position? Right? And then you can start asking yourself, well, like, who do I think is better? Who do I think is better and why? And then, you might get a sense of like how to play the position. And actually, let's start here. Castle seems correct. Knight G5. All right. So here we are. White to play. Who's better and why? What should he do? All right, we're going to call him Rio. I'm probably saying his name wrong, and I'm terrible about it, but let's go. All right,
Well,
I think yeah, go ahead.
it's Rio for so long.
I'm sorry. I think I do that every time, Rio. I'm really sorry about that.
The move is knight d4. Takes. Okay, you move it on the board?
Okay. Why is it knight d4?
Because, okay, let me show you. Take, knight f7. It's easier. And now you can start with bishop d3 or castles. I'm going to start with bishop d3, and now you have the castles, so rook e1's coming. And then I play rook e1, bishop d3, castles, rook e1, queen d8, and I think here queen c2 is good, attacking h7. And
okay, let's go through with it a little bit. So bishop d3, castles. You just tell me the moves. You want to play rook e1?
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, wait. No. I want to play queen c2 first.
You can play queen c2. That's fine. I'll play, but now I get to play knight h6.
Then I have to play rook e1 first.
You got to play rook e1. Okay. So queen d8.
Queen c2.
Right.
If you allow me to win h7, it's very good, I think.
All right. I'm actually, I want to just first of all stress, I'm not 100% sure myself, but I'm going to try this one.
Takes. Bishop e6.
Interesting. And what would you say the evaluation of this position is?
Unclear.
Okay.
Takes. Takes.
Okay. Well, I can certainly imagine Black claiming he's better in this position, right? Yeah, he's got an extra piece. He's got an extra piece. Something like, I don't know, queen here. It's a spicy position. Okay, now, Rio, let's talk for a second. Now, I realize you saw the move and you've known it because you're following chess, which is great. You're following it. But try to put it in words. What's going on with this knight d4 move?
Okay, so like it's sacrificing a piece, but like it basically forces all of his knights back, and then now our pawn mass is basically dominating both of the knights, and his king side is a bit weak. And after bishop d3, I have the open e file. I can play rook e1, queen f3, bringing my piece into the game really quickly. Well, the same isn't said about him bringing in his defense. He probably maybe can defend, but like it's gonna be very hard for him.
Okay. Now, I realize, you kind of played that intuitively, but did you feel that was, first of all, let me ask you this. Before we even play knight d4, let me just get your intuition. Do you think white should be better here?
Like if he gets through castles, and like if, for example, we trade, and like he can play even h6 and f4, knight f7. Here, his piece already in the game, and if allowed, I can even play f5, f4. But like otherwise, I don't. Maybe he has a little advantage, but otherwise, I don't think he has that much.
And after knight d4, what do you think? It's just unclear, compensation? Compensation, unclear. Okay, cool. Well, thank you, Rio. Yeah, we'll talk more about this position. And by the way, I have a bunch of positions that I have lined up here. If we talk about this one position all class long, I'm totally fine with that. I'm totally fine with that. If somebody else wants to come along, and I would love to hear some more people with this. Let's look, while we're waiting for some people, just at this variation, which I think was very interesting. So we had CD, knight f7. This is a variation that me and Rio, I say it wrong, I'm sorry. We're just playing bishop d3, castles, rook e1, queen d8, queen c2. And honestly, I'm not 100% sure. Knight h6 might also be playable, but I just did this and it seemed to make a certain amount of sense, like that. And I think, let me say this, I am not 100% sure what's going on here, but I do have an intuitive belief in Black's position here with the bishop, right? And somebody's just pointed out rook e7, and that's exactly the kind of catastrophe that could happen to me. Could happen to Black. Rook e7 might truly be an end of the world kind of situation. Yeah, that's a good move. I don't know if it, I don't know if it actually does all that much after bishop g4, but still, it's a very good attempt. And maybe queen g8 is not the right move. Yeah, good move, Rio. Good move, rook e7. Yeah. Okay. So let me, while we're waiting, I want some, I think one of the interesting things about this move that make it for me the move of the tournament, you kind of have to dig deep into what's going on. Let's say one of the first obvious things, right? One of the first obvious things about this move is that you get to move your c3 pawn. And that c3 pawn is in the way of the bishop. Let me just show you, let's call it an analogous position with the c3 pawn just for a second. Position I'm sure at least 99% of you have seen, right? e5. A similar situation in a lot of ways, because unopposed bishop, and this pawn often gets in the way of the bishop coming out this way, and really even preventing the other pieces coming over as well. Okay, so let me just bring it back to this move and knight d4. All right, and the other kind of somewhat obvious thing I want to say, Brian, do you want to get called on with those exclams? Is that what you're doing, buddy? The other obvious, not an obvious thing, I'll just tell you a story. Me and Kostya were doing commentary for this event. We're just hanging out. And one of the things that's interesting to me about the knight d4 is I was really struggling in this position kind of like my reaction intuitively to this position here. It just felt suspect to me. And I was doing a lot of, let's say, more conventional things. Now, let's say the things that I kind of intuitively sensed. Of course, I want to get rid of this pawn. I don't have no idea I was going to do it, but I want to get rid of the pawn. I also really wanted to play f4. f4, to my mind, is the key move in this position. All right, we have a question from Havish. So here's the question. What's going to go on after snip, snip, knight f7, bishop d3, g4. Now, I don't know why you'd play g4, but his question, yeah, I don't understand. I think in general, his question is, what about something like this? I actually wants knight d5, because then black looks fine. Okay, Vich, we're actually going to get to something, let's call it fairly similar to that. And let's say the obvious. If you want to put your knight on e5, well, you can just leave it there. You can just leave it there. And that's what MVL does, right? And we're going to talk about that position because that's a whole interesting ball of wax as well. I'm going to turn on my light here. Okay. So let me just backtrack a second. So I was considering all kinds of weak GM moves like knight h2, knight e1, just to prepare some kind of f4. And honestly, let me say, with all these positions today, I've not looked at them with the computer. I really wanted to look at them with human eyes, because knight d4, whether the computer well, I don't care what the computer says. That was an ingenious move. That was an ingenious move. And I'm going to say a little bit more why I think it's so deep. But again, I was thinking about knight h2 and knight e1 to get f4. And why? Because I want the rook in, and 2, I want to open up the position. I really want f4. So that's why knight d4, which it's a funny thing, because I think you have to admit that, well, it does not cross the normal mortals. It just doesn't cross our brain screen. You just think of it being lost. And it's really bizarre too, because there's so much apparent risk going on in this, where it feels like we've just lost a piece. Plus, the guy can just let us take on e5 if he wants to as well. Okay. One of the reasons I think knight d4 is a great move was the reaction of both players in the press conference. So let me just first recap the game. I'm not going to go over the whole game, but I'll just recap. Ding had a fantastic position, I would say winning, and MVL played great defense, move for move, and ends up drawing the game. But then in the postmortem, it's funny to me, MVL says, oh, dude, I should have taken the knight. I should have taken the knight. And he kind of gave a variation not too similar to the one that me and Rio just did, okay? With takes, and then either bishop d3 or rook e1. All right, so here's my question, okay? What plan did Ding have here that really, I'm gonna just call this plan incredibly beautiful, satisfying the requirements of the position, maybe winning by force, I don't know, but let's say it's not bishop d3 right away. What is it? And what is the move here? It's really pretty fascinating. It's hard, One of the things about knight d4 is not only do you have to allow your mind to think about it, but then you got to be like, wait a second, what am I going to do here? Now we got one question. Rook e1 first. It could be a thought, and I think that might have, you know, it was either bishop d3, rook e1 that, you know, a lot of times these super GMs that they just start spitting out long variations really fast. And that was kind of what MVL was talking, like, I would have been fine with bishop d3, rook e1. So that's not it. And I think that's, again, like your standard weak GM like myself would probably play something like that. But when you think about the requirements of the position, this is what I'm trying to get to. If you think about what white needs to do here, you will find the move. You will find the incredible move that Ding had planned. It's positional. It's positional in nature. It's not some big calculation. Not h6. It's not h6. Yeah, it's fascinating. Fascinating. Not c5. It's funny when I'm just looking at it now while I'm thinking, waiting for you guys to maybe have just a thought, you know, give you a chance to think about what the intention could be here. I'm asking myself, am I 100% convinced about it? I'm convinced about, let's call it the harmony of the idea. But like when I start looking at it, would I be able to convince myself in terms of variations, you know, just like if I was playing a game, you know, would I be like, oh yeah, this is going to work out for me. Yeah. No ideas? Any thoughts? Any thoughts about what Ding intended here? It's pretty interesting. In the interview too, you know, MVL, you know, it's one of those things, clearly MVL had been suffering regret during the game, being like, oh dude, I should have just taken the knight and then gone back to f7 and then I would have been fine. And so he didn't see this plan really either. And after he saw the plan, he was like, oh yeah, that would have been really dangerous for me, man. Yeah, really interesting. Okay, I'm going to show you. And then if we want to fight about it, we can, by the way. Like, again, this is not something one of the reasons I don't test it with the computer is I don't want to have both an unfair advantage in the analysis, and I don't want to, you know, present it as if it's some ironclad truth, right? It's just like a real game. It's just somebody throws a move at you and you don't know if it's right or not. But if I tell you the computer approved of it or whatever, the computer said 1.5, then it, you know, it's just meaningless. There's no debate. Okay, so here's Ding's idea. And I just want to, one of the reasons I think he's such an amazing player is just the clarity of this conception here. So queen c2, let's just say black castles. And first of all, you can't take. What is the point? Oh, we want this rook here. Very nice. Very simple and strong. And the point is simply that now my rooks, both of my rooks, are exactly where they want to be. And my rook on f1, I do not want to play this rook to e1 because I want the power of f4 in my arsenal. Right. So in this position, all of my pieces are playing. And I think one of the things about positional play is you got to kind of believe in it. You got to believe in it because, yeah, calculating variations here, pretty tough. And I'll just say from my naive point of view here that knight h6 would kind of scare me. But, you know, we're just beginning the party after knight h6 because here I can play f4. And it's a fiesta. We got ourselves a fiesta here, my friends. We got the full party. Is it over? No. He can play queen g7. And it's going to go on from here. And one of the many problems for black is the entrance to both e6 and e7 with the rook. And of course, this knight, really important to see, I guess it's obvious probably to everybody, but it has no great squares, right? No great squares. And this, I mean, both of them, but especially this guy, completely free. And yes, it is. It's very important that I have this entrance to the position, that the bishop is not blocked by the c3 pawn. Yeah, beautiful move. And again, this is not, it's not like, I don't think it's fair to say that white's winning, just that he's got an incredibly promising position and everybody's in the right place. So we go back, like this knight's in the way. He's got to go. This pawn's in the way. He's got to go, right? So those are, I think, you know, when you come up with a move like knight d4, those are the basics of your intuition, I think. I would hope. Like, would I find knight d4? I don't know, but I'm trying to, like, when I'm training myself and you guys, I'm trying to teach you and myself, how do I find a move like knight d4? And it's only if somewhere in the back of your mind you have a position like this and you're like, oh, dude, this guy's got to go. And then you got a position like this, and with Havish, you're like, oh yeah, at some point I got to push that guy. He's got to go. Bishops need freedom. Okay, now, before we move on to the next example, I want to say two things that are really interesting. The first is that MBL didn't mess with knight f7. Even though maybe he had some regrets, there was something about his chess intuition that said, no way, man. No way. I don't want any piece of that. So what happened was a position that was honestly, I think, pretty hard to judge, namely, at least, especially from a distance, castles, snip, snip. And me and Kosti were looking at this, and, you know, the players are thinking, so we have some time, and kind of just thinking about the position, and it's a real who's better and why moment. My first intuition, when I first looked at it, was I felt like, oh, you know, black kind of sort of should be fine. He's got the beautiful rook. His queen can help defend the king. The bishop on c8 will do its thing. It's a good bishop. And then Kostya was like, no, bro, just play bishop e3. And I imagine it was a similar thing for MBL, where all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait a second. This not so easy. Not so easy. And the first obvious point is that b6, what you kind of need to do, a4. What are we doing? We're opening the position. And so the game went knight c5, a5. And then once you see that, you're like, oh yeah, white's better. White's definitely better. White's definitely better. And I'm not going to show the whole game, but I think when I think of good chess, that's a great example. Also, like just a chess that's much higher level than mine, but at a level where I feel like I can, you know, at least kind of sort of appreciate where the greatness comes from. Yeah. Okay. So let's go to game number 2, which was played today. Let me stare at this position for a second. Again, an unconventional opening. We get a little Benoni going on, but a f3 Benoni. And this, I'm not an expert or anything, but my sense is like knight bc3 and knight g3 are more, let's call them standard. In any case, knight ec3, obviously a little unconventional. a6, a4, and then Nepo plays knight h5. Okay. Now, the first thing I want to say is that I have a lot of sympathy for Black's position. You know, I don't know exactly what's going on, but, you know, there's a great quote, which is, in the Benoni, white is better, but Black has all the chances. And we're going to definitely see that in the coming couple moves. Black has tremendous opportunities to mess with Ding here. And let's state the obvious. In particular, it's these two pieces that aren't playing for white. And Black has access to a variety of dark squares here. Okay. So I'm pretty sure that Ding was out of his, preparation here because he tanked and he played castles. And before we get into like what I consider the move of the day, let's say one thing that's interesting is that if bishop d4, king h1, queen h4, I think queen e1 is forced. And one thing that I thought was interesting about this, again, I haven't checked this with the computer or anything, but I think there's a general way of approaching this position and saying that, first of all, if white has an advantage, or white's advantage doesn't, before we decide who's better and why, we'll say white does have the advantage of more space. And in general, with space, you don't want to trade stuff. One of the things, though, that Gelfand's recent book kind of demonstrated is that when you're dealing with a space advantage, in general, what we're really talking about is the domination of the minor pieces. And so the trading the queens or the rook, that's not as big of a deal as dominating the minors. And so the more I looked at this endgame, I felt like that rule really applied. Like white is better here, and the knights are going to start coming into the weaknesses on the queen side. Okay. If someone wanted to fight me on that, I would totally understand. I'd be like, okay, I kind of get where you're coming from if you want to fight me on this. But yeah, to me, I'll just say it looks better. Okay, so Nepo plays the fighting move, 95. And here's my question. What should white play? And let me simplify it a little bit. I think there's 3 conceivable moves. 92, G4, and Bishop E2. Maybe I'm missing a move in there, but that's what I think are the moves. There is a concrete threat, by the way, that black has, which is Queen H4, and then there's no Queen E1 because this dude's hanging over here, right? So that's the concrete threat that black has. Take a moment on this position and think about what you would do. And if you want to do a different move than those 3, that's fine. But I wanted to do it as a little bit of choose your own adventure. And if you want to try to defend your claim, put an exclam and I'll call on you here. G4, Bishop E2, Knight E2. We got 1 vote for Bishop E2. Yeah. And let's tell the story of Bishop E2. The story of Bishop E2 is, well, maybe someday I'll play F4, and I don't want to trade pieces, don't want to trade minors, right? So maybe that's the move. From a completely dogmatic standpoint, that is what we'd like to do. Then we got somebody. These people are all afraid of talking. They're just dire afraid of talking. G4. Yeah. We got another Bishop E2. We got one Knight E2. Again, if someone wants to defend their claim, put an exclam and we'll give them a chance. We got an A5 on the board. I'm just going to show why A5 is wrong, just to center you guys on the dire threats facing white. So if A5, Queen H4 wins on the spot, there is no Queen E1 because we can trade and snip on D3. We got a comment 92 because white needs some defense. Yeah, G4 looks like defense too. Yeah. I'll give you guys a moment on this one. It truly is not the easiest decision. It is truly not the easiest decision. G4 is overextended. Now, I'll tell you guys what, without giving away, maybe G4 is the move. G4 was my move. Maybe I was wrong. maybe I was right. Maybe I was wrong. But G4 was the move I was thinking of. And G3, honestly, I did, I was covering it this morning. Kostya, by the way, oh man, that guy was sleeping in. He wouldn't help me at all. But I was doing it, and G3 crossed my mind. It's a pretty ugly move. But, you know, in absence of like knowing what to do here. Oh, by the way, excuse me, it's 95. And then if you're going to play it, it would be here, G3. Well, say, so we have a comment that G4 is wrong because it's overextending. However, if black goes back, knight f6 or knight g7, haven't we solved all of our nasty little counterplay that black has? Got an interesting question about g3 and then knight takes g3. That might be a real issue. Yeah. Austin, you want me to call on you, buddy, or is that just an exclam? Or is that just an exclam? Is that an exclam? Oh, these exclam things are confusing. Maybe we need a different part of the typewriter here instead of the exclam. Yeah. Maybe an underscore. That's right. Okay. Well, so I stared at this thing forever. And by the way, I made the wrong move. Okay. G4. Actually, I'll give you guys a chance. What is dramatically wrong with G4? What is dramatically wrong with G4? I wanted to play G4, and this is the reason I'm not up there. This is the reason I'm not playing up on that stage, is because I probably would have played G4. What's wrong with G4? Queen H4, just take the knight. Oh, GH, bishop H3, even if it's your move after that, I can let you take the rook. I'll get 2 pieces. This is the kind of example, by the way, of where this really lends credence to the saying, white is better, but black has all the chances. Okay, the problem with G4 is knight G3. Takes H5. Now, my silly little mind stopped here because I was like, oh, I stopped him from coming in. But then, hola, 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 my friends. Game over. Game over. That's it. Hola. Hola. That's it. That's it. Well, the problem with Queen D2 is our friend the bishop will hang at the end of it all, or we just take it now. Your choice. One of those moves and it's all over. Right? Brutal. Totally brutal. I guess knight takes D3 first is the clinical approach. Oh, hola, niños. That's right. Hola, niños. Game over. Okay, so that's the kind of way that a clown like me would lose this position. All right, back to the front. G4 is out. What should we play? Let's just be fair. When you're playing, you have no idea who's better and why. And honestly, you know, one of the great glories of the Benoni, whose name is now tarnished because it has got a bad reputation. You know, you get positions like this, and this is like, oh yeah, let's play chess. This is fun. All right, we got some people playing bishop e2, some people playing knight e2. Be nice if we had some explanation. Someone wants to bring an explanation. It'd be really fun. Okay, so one of the beautiful things about what Ding does is we're about to enter a minefield. We're just going to enter a minefield. And in a lot of ways, it's going to be about calculation. Now, the last example was too. You know, there's all kinds of crazy variations that you could start going down. But the reason knight e2 is I don't even know if this is the computer's right move, but I think I have access now to Ding Liren's brain. And the intuition is that winning the bishop in this position in particular is going to be at least sufficient compensation for an exchange that we are bound to lose. All right, let's look at, let's call it variation 1. Queen h4, knight d4. Now, in the game, we're going to talk about knight takes d3. But the first variation I think is really important to see is knight g3, king g1, knight f1, bishop f1, cd, and queen d4. There might be another move besides queen d4, but let's just play queen d4 for a second. And stare at this position for a moment. I think it's fascinating to me for a number of reasons. But some of the things I want to stress here are that, first of all, it'd be very hard to come to a concrete appraisal of the position, right? And being like, okay, X, Y, and Z is now going to happen. I think, for me anyway, right? It would be more like it's more like I get to this position in my mind and I say to myself, don't know exactly what's going on, but that bishop on C1, monstrous, a monster, an absolute monster. And we're going to see in the other variations too, the monstrousness of that bishop is, let's call it the guiding force in the position. So I don't want to convince you here that white is much better or that he's winning, but just at the very least that this is a joyous position for white to play. Nota bene, the pawn on d6 is really a problem. And we will start pushing black back sooner rather than later with f4. Okay, so that's variation number 1. And so when he played 92, I'm just going to guess, I think this was one of the positions in his head where he said, I'm at least okay. I'm at least okay. All right, so knight d4, and then this is the other one, and this is even more hairball. Queen g3, queen takes d3, knight g3, king g1, knight f1. Now, this is much more complicated, much more complicated. Check this out. So we play king takes f1, pawn takes, queen takes, castles. Well, we have some of our own coordination issues. And this is getting smacked. We no longer have the 2 bishops, and we're no longer playing against this knight. We're no longer like pushing him around or anything. So yeah, white's actually probably doing pretty terrible. And if black wants it, he'll probably have f5 at his disposal soon. So also, if we play knight e2, there's a major bummer in store for us with queen e1. And I didn't see any way out of this thing. This just looks like the end of the world for me, right? Okay, so this is where it gets really hairy. Dude plays knight c2. Oh, man. Oh, man. And first of all, just want to say for myself that positions where I don't develop are pretty frightening, pretty frightening. And now there's 2 variations, okay? There's queen h2 and there is knight h2. Let's look briefly at queen h2, because this would be a position maybe you'd say, nah, I'm not doing too great. But check it out. Boom. Check to the miserable king. Here. And then what white has to see, I think, is check to the rook, castles, and then this very beautiful queen mate. That's a queen mate, my friend. Game over. Game over. Really beautiful. Really beautiful. And notice the knight's been a hero. The knight's been down. In fact, let's just chart that knight's path here for a second. Boom, boom, back to e2, d4, knight c2. You know, that's a lot of moves. Okay, So the knight's a hero. So yeah, we got a comment. Imagine doing that to a world GM. I mean, a guy who's going to play Carlsen, right? Okay, so that's variation 1. Variation 2 is more intense, and I claim only an intuitive understanding. So let me show you what I saw, which was Queen E3, and really it had to be either Queen E3 or Queen D2. It comes with a distinct threat, but there's a reason why Queen E3 is played instead of Queen D2. Now, before we go further, let's just notice it's about the awesomeness of our bishop. That's why White's believing in this position. Because think about it. At any point, Black can play knight takes f3, and he's got a rook and 2 pawns against the 2 minors, right? Sometimes that's beautiful for Black. Sometimes it's not, right? And in this position, the reason it's beautiful is that bishop is amazing. That bishop is our guy. Okay. We got a question, why Queen E3 and not knight C3? And here's the thing that I think White is worried about. That Black is going to play G5, and this G4 move is not only going to help create tactics to free the knight on H2, after which he's already up a pawn, by the way. He's up an exchange and a pawn. But it will also create an attack on our king. No, we're in an incredibly scary situation, my friends. And to me, the Queen E3, there a lot of times you look at these fantastic games and you don't really get a sense of, the why of it. So to me, the main variation was obvious, which was G5. And the point is that if you take, there's snap, snip, chuck, ruck, and buck, and that's it. That's it. So, and G5, the same idea with the knight C3 move, right? And the reason for Queen E3, I believe, is E5. Harry doesn't even begin to describe the situation. I spent a lot of time on this. I believe White's better, but it was still pretty hairball. Still pretty hairball. In the game, we got castles instead. And this I felt was just going into the dark night here. And watch this. This is an instructive moment, my friends. Me and I think every other random weak GM would play Queen G2. And look at the anger. Look at the anger of this bishop. Whack! No, my friend. I am coming out. I am coming out. Queen F3, knight D2. And everybody's coordinated now. Everybody's coordinated. And it's beginning to be obvious that Black is lost. And it's about the dark squares. It's about the dark squares. And the beautiful variation, the only one you really have to think about, I guess, is this one. What do you do on Queen D3? And the answer, pop, game over. Sorry, friend. Yeah. So in the game, we get F6, but really, I even stopped watching here. I was like, we're done. And why is this winning? Because I'm just destroying that D6 pawn, completely destroying it. Game continue. I'll do a couple more moves. I didn't even watch this part. This was enough for me. Better king, better minors, the whole business. Thank you very much for playing. Whew. So this dude is going to play Carlsen. I personally don't think he has any chance. His name is Nepo. He's got a man bun. I don't think he's got any chance at all. But this was, I want to say, for the tournament, some of the most beautiful chess that I've seen. And my main guy was Ding. I thought he played some of the best, even if he didn't win a lot of the games he should. If I had had more time, I was going to show you 2 more games. I just want to direct your attention to them if you want to take a look. Also, bishop versus knight. This amazing position that Ding had as Black, and he flipped the board, where he's also going to, sack a pawn to open the position in an intuitive way. In fact, let's just show the two moves he begins with here. Boom. Bang. Beautiful, man. Beautiful. Are we going to give up the C pawn? Yes. And then also, in this position against Alexyenko, he's been down a pawn forever, but has the two bishops. And then we start this complications with bishop e4, where he's 2 pawns down. He just sacked a second pawn. And black isn't technically losing here, but we have an amazing tactical sequence I encourage you to check out. Okay. You guys, I got to get out of here. And I will be back probably next month or something if Greg lets me come back. And just to summarize, when you have the bishop, I think a key part of your consciousness that needs to be developed in all these lessons, when I say it, I'm saying it for myself as well, is you have the license to open the position, to play fast and loose with the position, and to sacrifice material to open the beasts up. And let's pause for a moment just in glory at the move knight d4. Amazing. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much. The homework is to study. I didn't plan for homework, but the Ding MVL game and the Nepo game and the Giri game and the Alexyenko game, all from this recent tournament. All right, everybody. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.